in the jungle. Come on.
We're here. Good morning. Cellular Healing TV episode, believe it or not, 29. So this is our 29th week. A few replays in there too. So when emergencies come up, and sometimes we don't have an opportunity to go live with you guys. But really exciting topic today. Dr. Pompa and I have been discussing this, and we realized we haven't laid out one of our best topics, our most wanted topic to the public, which is called multiple chemical sensitivity MCS, chemical sensitivity. And that's one of those things that, again, that's called incurable. People don't know they even have it, but it's something that Dr. Pompa and I suffered with personally, to the point, at one point in my life, I couldn't even leave my home for fear of just feeling that feeling and getting that sick from chemical exposures that my body overreacted to. So Dr. Pompa, you have tons of multiple chemical sensitivity patients. A lot of your patients have that as a complication, whether they're just super toxic, amalgam sick, from mercury, biotoxins. Even some of your thyroid diabetes patients also have that complication of multiple chemical sensitivity. So let's go over some of the signs today with the viewers to let them know whether they have it and the reality of it, and then some of the tricks and tips that have helped you help your patients, and what we have used, and some of the funny things we have done along the way as we suffered and overcame multiple chemical sensitivity. Welcome to the show today.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I would say most of my clients have it, and most of them don't even know it. Matter of fact, I would say that about a lot of the population, that most of the population has some degree of chemical sensitivity on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the worst. Most people are a 1, a 2, or even a 3 and have no clue. Of course, we're seeing the people who are 7, 8, 9s, and 10s, where their life is literally getting hammered by something that they really don't understand. Meaning that I remember the day that I was driving behind a truck, and I was sick already, right? I already had symptoms of fatigue and insomnia, anxiety, and all the things that I was going, what's wrong? Headaches, digestive issues. So I was full-blown sick. However, I didn't know I was chemically sensitive for years. And I remember driving behind the truck feeling pretty good that day, right? It was probably one of my good days. And all of a sudden, I breathed some diesel. And at that moment, I became extremely irritable, brain fogged, where I couldn't even remember where I was going or how to get there. And my body inflamed, and I had a bunch of symptoms. And at that moment, I realized I'm chemically sensitive. And then it started happening. You walk into a bathroom with air freshener.
Phone call, Warren.
Yeah. I walk into a bathroom with air fresheners and realize, I walked in there normal, walking out not feeling normal. 20 minutes later, completely jacked, as we say. Matter of fact, we've even started our own little lingo around it. What is the call out when someone has fabric softener on, right? You smell those people. We smell them a mile away. Fabric softener is loaded with about 6 neurotoxins on average. And I don't know the percentage of Americans that use fabric softener, in their dryers, dryer sheets, etc. But that stuff is toxic, and boy, it does a number on us. Immediately. I remember patients coming in to my office, and I would have to tell them, you can't wear this stuff. I go into a real stupor. But Warren, the sad reality.
Yeah, one of the common things is, that was, I haven't wore this clothes is 6 months old. You know what I mean? It shouldn't smell like anything. But those fragrance warehouses, those chemicals, literally you could wash it in Tide, which has multiple chemicals in it as well, and then you add 6 or 7 more with a fabric softener, and then you throw in some downy dryer sheets. That stuff, just like perfume, will last for years. And you pull it out, and just like they say on TV, they show you on TV, oh, it smells as fresh as when I first washed it. You know why? Because it's a chemical that tricks your brain, that sticks around forever in a day, a neurotoxin that tricks your brain into thinking that it smells right, stimulating a similar response that a natural thing would, but yet it's a complete chemical neurotoxin. So there is no, wash it. You could rewash it in just natural stuff, and it'll take 2 or 3 times just to get it out.
Absolutely. Yeah, those things are made, those chemicals are made to adhere to the fabric, and they're made to adhere to you. And here's the problem too: is it's a double whammy. You're breathing it right into your lungs, into your bloodstream, and these things adhere into your body, bioaccumulate. They do not come out. This is not your average chemical, folks. And you're absorbing it through your skin. So you're wearing your clothing from your, you said it best, right? It's from the tide all the way through to the bounce, you know, to the fabric softeners, to the sheets, dryer sheets, you know, and you were wearing and smelling chemicals all day long. Oh, no, but then you go to bed at night, and guess what? Your pillowcase, your sheets are full of the same toxins right into your skin, right into your lungs. I'll tell you, it's probably one of the most toxic things that most Americans have no clue about. You know, spend the extra money, folks, on the 100% natural detergents, and please do not use fabric softeners of any type. Warren, this would probably be a great intro to show your dryer balls at this point. I'm just saying you love those things, and my pets love them.
You love the dryer balls.
Exactly. That's what we use in our dryer, these dryer balls. You know, but they actually do work, and the pets do, in fact, love them. But anyways, yeah, Warren, I mean, tell a little bit about your story, because, you know, I actually thought I was doing you a favor at one point, and I saved you from your moldy basement to put you in my basement, which just so happened to have some new carpet in it. And, you know, I didn't do you any favors, did I?
Yeah, you did. This was before, you know, we knew that we were, you know, Dan and I traveled all over the country. Dan, before even I showed up on the scene, sick, as a cousin to his wife, very sick, and we were big into mold, and I cleaned up hazardous waste, and so I was reading the articles on mercury poisoning and the symptoms of it, and that was me. So I was completely sold out on this stuff. Dr. Pompa, you know, starts taking care of me, giving me supplements, doing. At the time, he was a chiropractor. He was practicing chiropractic. You're not practicing chiropractic now, but then you were, and you start adjusting me, resetting my autonomic nervous system, start feeling better. So I'm full blown. I'm like, we got this thing, and multiple chemical sensitivity wasn't on the radar. And before I go there, I'll place a little seed. When you sleep with a fabric softener and Tide, or, you know, not just a blame Tide, but multiple fragrant type laundry detergents, so there's many of them, even Arm & Hammer, you know, all on the line, so I'm not just beating down Tide, I'm beating all of them down, and that's why they have the fragrance-free options, right? So you're sleeping in that and wonder why you're not sleeping, right? It's like, well, maybe, you know, you have had patients, Dan, that you said, hey, stop the perfume, and they start sleeping through the night. So if you don't sleep through the night, maybe it's your bounce pillow, bounce baby pillow we call it, that's keeping you up at night, you know. And I'll throw in a trick for you. If you do get into a hotel and you don't bring your own pillowcase, but bring your own pillowcase, you can also take a T-shirt of yours, take their pillowcase off, and put your T-shirt over. So there's something, number one, if you're sitting there and getting irritated while you're sleeping in a hotel and not know why, and you smell that fragrance, your body's saying, hey, you know, get this out of my body because it's irritating my system and it's making you irritable. Take that off, put another one on. So moving into my story, I move into Dr. Pompa's basement. He's like, Warren, I'm sick of seeing you sick. If you don't remove the source, our number one, you are going to remain sick. So I'm like, all right. He spoke to his wife, and she graciously said, well, she already had 5 kids at the time, I'll take on a 6th kid, me, a sick one, that was irritable, you know, wasn't the best, in the best shape, but just leave it at that. And he moves me into this beautiful, you know, basement, essentially apartment. It was a great place to stay, and we weren't tuned into the chemical sensitivity things. And it had 2-year-old carpet in it. And we kind of knew that VOCs and, you know, that stuff, you don't want to put something in, but 2 years, surely it would be okay. So I started first night, second night, third night, just to fast forward, walking upstairs going, did you sleep last night? Nope, didn't sleep. And there'd be at times where Dan said, I'm not sleeping here either. So long story short, start fast forward, and we start realizing that the home we were in, because it was about, I think, 3 years old at the time, I don't know, Dr. Pompa, about 3, start making all of us sick, and especially me, because I was in a locked basement room with a closed door with a fan running, because any noise would wake me up, with a locked door closed up, off-gassing chemicals into my body all night long. And then I'll pass the story on to you, Dr. Pompa.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it was true. You know, I mean, on the backside of Warren, actually, certain things so much better moving into a chemical newer home started creating new symptoms and, you know, symptoms that were oftentimes worse. So, and I've watched that happen so many times, Warren, with so many of my clients that, you know, they're better and then they move into a new home and then only to revisit similar symptoms and worse symptoms, sleeplessness, anxiety, brain fog, fatigue, all because of chemicals. So, you know,
That's
with
a
that said,
mistake, by the way, for your mold patients. They go, I'll just get a new home. It was the same thing that I did. After that, I had bought an older home, you know, a little bit older apartment. It was 4 or 5 years old, but yet I didn't realize the insulation that was in it wasn't formaldehyde free. So I had to do everything that you needed to do with air exchangers. We have videos out there on that, air exchangers, of course, water filtration, positive pressurizing our home to keep those chemicals out, which is really tough to do. So, you know, and that's what you did. You ripped out all the carpet, put all hardwood in, put in air exchangers, pressurized the home, whole house dehumidification, so you didn't create another problem. So these mold sick patients like I was, obviously complicated from my heavy metal exposure and the overreactive immune response I was having to mold in mold VOCs. VOCs mean volatile organic compounds, kind of like gasoline. When you smell it, that's a volatile off gas as it evaporates. It's a volatile organic compound. Gasoline's organic, not the good organic, but it's organic meaning it's from oil. So, you know, we cleaned up our homes, positively pressured and brought the fresh air in, pushed the bad air out, sucked it out, and then we were able to sleep most nights through the night in your house, fast forward.
yeah, we became obviously really good at making homes safe. You know, we learned a lot, and we'll share some of that with you here before we get off today. But, you know, I mean, why is the problem? Why are people chemically sensitive and how did I get there and how so many people end up there? You know, we described the bucket theory in the past where, you know, you start taking a lot of toxins from the time we're in mommy's belly, in utero, and we're taking in her toxins, the lead from her bones, the mercury from her amalgams, and the chemicals that she's using on her body. And then we're born, and we start vaccinating, and we start exposing our children to all these chemicals that we're talking about. Let's give them the nice fluffy blanket right from the dryer, you know, dryer sheets, everything we're saying. I mean, not to mention everyone's perfumes. You know, our outside air today is cleaner. However, the big thing that nobody's talking about is indoor air. It is on average 5 to 7 times more toxic than the worst day in LA. And we're talking about your homes, folks. Your home is the most toxic place on the planet because of all the chemicals, the neurotoxins that are in carpets, you know, all the supplies, furniture, all the fire retardants, the bromine. I mean, we can just keep listing chemicals that really weren't around when our parents were living. Things were very simple. They were exposed to very few of the thousands of chemicals that we are exposed to today. And I don't remember the number, but it's, you know, how many thousands are introduced every year into basically our lives, into the marketplace that haven't been tested for cancer, neurotoxicity. Look, I quoted, you know, ladies, you use on average 518 chemicals just to start your day. 219 on average of that 500, some that you're using are known cancer causers. Not to mention, most of that 500 some are obesogens, which means they're chemicals that drive obesity, trigger genes, turn on genes for weight loss. But look, my bottom line is this. We are exposed to so many chemicals that we're putting into our bodies from food, makeup, personal care products, our clothes, our environments, our homes. And we build homes now that they're so efficient. They trap in these chemicals. So literally our indoor air is filling with the chemicals that we're putting on ourselves, the chemicals that are up from all the new products that we bring into our home. Computers. Warren, we have to off-gas our computers. You ever smell that new computer smell? Well, that's bromine. Yeah, that screws up your thyroid, folks. You know, I mean, the flame retardants that they use on computers, it takes a year to off-gas. You're breathing that in every day.
Yeah, that volatile smell that you think is sweet and that new car smell, it's literally killing you. And you wonder why every time I'm on my computer, I get a headache. Well, That's why. You know,
Yeah.
it's the bromine causing. What is the cellular brain inflammation? What is that called, Dr. Pompa? The scientific term?
I'm not
Um,
cellular brain information. You mean
brain inflammation.
encephalitis?
Something.
You're
Yeah, toxic encephalitis.
toxic encephalitis.
We're both cutting in and out right
We'll give it a
now,
minute.
a little bit.
We'll come back.
Let me plug in here.
Anyways, while Warren's
plug in,
always figuring out the situation, so
accept my invite, Dan, for the drawing tool. This way I can draw on your screen.
All right.
Accept that invite.
Where is it?
And I can draw some of this for our viewers. It should be a little pop-up.
Oh.
There it is. Perfect. Now I can draw you up when you're talking about. I can draw a little toxic cone and just show people.
So you know, the bottom line is, let me finish making my point. Is that we're exposed to neurotoxins. These are toxins that attack our brain and our nerve system. You know, unlike any time, you know, in the history of man. So it's not just the outside toxicity gets so much attention from the whole environmental green movement. You know, what about what we're putting into our bodies? You know, really that's the bigger issue. And it's driving chemical sensitivity in so many people. And the sad part is, Warren, is so many people don't feel well. They don't realize they're chemically sensitive. You know, it took us a while to figure it out. So, you know, here we are now with people who are chemically sensitive, have sleep issues, have anxiety, have depression, have just these brain fog energy issues, and weight loss resistance. They start gaining weight, triggering bad genes, and they have no idea that it's because their body is driving inflammation because of the smell of certain chemicals. So really, and I don't want to focus on this show, but really what's happening is, you know, you get hit by a major toxin, you know, mercury, mold, you know, any of these big guys, that shuts down your detox pathways. You start bioaccumulating a lot of chemicals. Now your brain, there's a place in your brain called the amygdala, which really is how your brain starts to memorize or you know, create emotion to memory. And what happens is you know, your brain starts smelling these chemicals, and it creates the same inflammation process with just a sniff of one little chemical, because it's trying to survive. You know, it wants to keep you away. And with that sniff, one little sniff of one little chemical, it remembers the reaction, triggers inflammation, a chemical explosion in your body. And now with one sniff of a minor chemical, all of a sudden, you know, you have inflammation and a bunch of bizarre symptoms. Why? Because a neural pattern was set up in your brain. So part of the fixing has to be to change those patterns. You know, there's even an inflammation process called the no-ono cycle. And I'm not going to bore you with the biochemistry, but it's an inflammation pattern with just one sniff of a minor chemical triggers this inflammation pattern. And once that goes, it doesn't downregulate. So we have to redirect that pattern as well as the pattern that the brain has created when it smells certain chemicals to drive inflammation. So, you know, but we're both well. You know, we're both well. I mean, I can sniff gasoline, I can drive. I don't even, you know, matter of fact, I'm probably less chemically sensitive than most people that don't even know they're chemically sensitive. However, put me in a room with formaldehyde, new carpet, and I will become brain fogged within an hour or so. Now the difference is that I clear out. You know, I leave there in an hour. I'm normal again. In the old days, it would be days before we were normal again. So, you know, there is a fix to this. You have to downregulate inflammation. You have to empty the bucket. You have to clean the body out, which typically takes 7 years, you know, really, to repattern the body in these things. You have to do the right things long enough.
Right.
And the body does repattern. The body does go, okay, we're not in trouble here. I'm not going to create this massive inflammation. So those of you who are trying to get well, you know, chemically sensitive, it takes time doing the right things. I mean, these are the things we've been talking about, the 5 R's. So if you're saying, well, what things are you talking about, Dr. Pompa? Go back and watch the shows. You know, the 5 R's really is how we both got out of chemical sensitivity, Warren. Right? Yeah. I mean, the 5 R's is the answer, you know, but you have to do this long enough. Chemical sensitivity was our last thing to fix. We had our energy back. We had, our lives back. We were sleeping through the night. However, the chemical reactions that we would get, that was the last thing to go, the last thing to heal. So have hope in that.
Yeah, and what Dr. Pompa made a great point. And by the way, there's a really good, concise article that we just released. It still should be the main article on the website. If you go to drpompa.com, drpompa.com, we just did a really great summary of the 5 R's. Our audience was, we're actually growing rapidly, Dr. Pompa. I looked at our Google Analytics. We're actually crashing our servers, so I'm switching servers now. So this information is getting out there. We have a lot of page views, a lot of unique visitors coming to our site now. So I just upgraded that. So for you ever having trouble going to our website, even though it's a dedicated server, a little tech talk here, we have upgraded to a huge server. So send your friends. We can handle the influx that we're seeing right now. But go there, and there's a great summary on the 5 R's. But Dr. Pompa, you made a great point. Is as you get well, just like if you smell something that was a negative reaction. Say you got in college, Goldschlager, you got really sick once on that, and you smell Goldschlager and you automatically get sick. You created a really negative pattern in your neurology. What happens is the same thing with a chemical smell like gasoline, and you start to realize not only do you, because now we're telling you, it's like, yeah, I do get a headache. So you start living in fear over the gasoline, and your body's starting to recognize the same thing, gasoline bad. So when you get well, and it really isn't affecting you or, as much, your body can handle the toxic load, if you will, because you've cleaned out. Now you got to start realizing, hey, I don't have to react that way or overreact that way. And that's there's a mental game to this chemical sensitivity that has to play out, because there's a realistic fear that you have to avoid these chemicals so that you don't get sick, so you have to get the stuff out of your home, you have to do all that stuff. But then as you get well, you get little exposures to something here or perfume there, you have to realize and kind of fight through your old pattern that Goldschlager, even though it is bad, because it's a chemical and it's a toxin and it's alcohol, it's poison, but if you have one shot, it's not going to make you puke again. For instance, I'm trying to develop some sort of analogy here. I'm not a teacher. I'm anchoring back to college days. It's the best I could do, Dr. Pompa.
Yeah.
That's the trick.
Well, it is. There's a 2-part thing. You have to empty the bucket, right?
Right.
That when I say the bucket, I'm talking about the bioaccumulation of toxins throughout your life, right? That finally one day overflows. And genetically, some of us have bigger buckets than others, right? And I always like to say, if we have 50 to 70 trillion cells in our body, really that's 50 to 70 trillion little buckets that end up getting toxic, and now genes start getting turned on, etc. We have to empty those buckets, and that's part of it, right? You'll never get over your chemical sensitivity until the buckets are empty. That's R1, remove the sources from the cellular level, true cellular detox. Number 2 part of the treatment is, you're right, Warren, you create these anchors, these patterns neurologically that your body wants to do good by you. So it smells a chemical that's hurt you when your bucket was full, and it creates the same pattern. All of a sudden it tells your hypothalamus, to release certain chemicals like adrenaline, like cortisol, like, any inflammatory type of chemical reaction in your body that is there to save your life, but it releases it on just the minor little smell. And that pattern is still going even though your bucket is more empty. So we have to break those patterns and change the memory and change the way your body patterns. So when people say, oh, that's just psychological, well, they're right, it is psychological, but it's driven by a real physiological problem, and it's physiological. So, just no different than if a lion walked in the room where you are, Warren, you would have physiology that would go crazy. Let's say, hypothetically, it was the most friendly lion in the world, tamed and trained. That lion, your brain doesn't know that. So as soon as that lion walks in, your body releases adrenaline and all kinds of stuff, and it drives inflammation that will occur after the lion's gone. Well, that's because that's been patterned into your nervous system that lions kill. Well, that's the same with the chemical. So yes, psychological, yes. Physiological, yes. Real reaction, real inflammation. Driven by the fact that you've been hurt so badly by these toxins. Your body, it's like being bit by a dog. You've been bit by a dog, man, you're going to be fearful of dogs. It's going to
Every
create.
time you hear a dog start barking, you
Yeah.
run away. And so here's the thing, Dan, we did that. We found out that chemicals, we didn't understand the psychology in this journey. We didn't know we were chemically sensitive. We knew we were. We knew the dog that bit us. Everyone's around us saying it's all in your head. But we're like, well, no, I walk in, I'm normal. I walk out, I'm sick. You're not. We're not. So when we started to travel and do things together, we created a little community, Dr. Pompa and Warren, our own vocabulary. It's just like a churchies, or if you're, from a different culture, we created our own culture, and it was the chemical sensitivity culture, and there is one out there. We even have websites, MCS Awareness. There's some good information there. I think that site was down for a while. Got attacked, more tech talk, got attacked by viruses and things. But we developed our own little culture, our own little world, and we start running with maps, through airports. We had our shirts up over our face, all the time. We would hold our breath. We would trick the bus driver to not pay attention. See, that's a good technique there, Dr. Pompa. Well done, using the T-shirt over the face, the cotton without the holes. All right, that's another good move, Dr. Pompa. Well done. But we do it together, and at first it was awkward, but eventually we just didn't care because it did help, or psychologically it gave us, it helped. And so that we were protecting ourselves. So, but you did. It was the safe. You kind of breathe your own air. It actually does work. So now everyone watching this who has chemical sensitivity is going to pull the Pompa and Warren show, and go under. I'm going under is what we used to say. We'd walk in. I'm going under. We trick bus drivers who had air fresheners at times when we travel teaching doctors across the country, and we tell these stories. Dan says, I'll distract them. You grab the air freshener. So he would distract them. I'd go by, snap it off his mirror, and then go throw it in the garbage can. We've done that. We would literally, they would have them sitting behind the seats, and we'd be sitting there. There's an air freshener. There's one in here. I can smell it. I can't. And then Dan or I would be like, oh, there it is. It's like behind the seat. I mean, hilarious. Stuck to behind the seat, and we'd break it off and throw it away. Just nuts. Or we just literally ask the guy. It's like, look, you probably think we're nuts, but that stuff bothers us. Could you please, put that in the glove box? He'd be like, all right, and then we just tip them well afterwards to make up for it. But we can go on and on.
How about some of our code words? Bounce, bounce, baby was fabric softener, right? We would warn each other, like bounce, bounce, baby meant, we'd start looking around for the person with fabric softener. How about this one? Fresh batch. That meant someone had a fresh batch, meant that they were doused with cologne or perfume. There's a fresh batch. So
yeah, the morning dose, man.
We literally developed a language to so we could adapt to our environments and remain chemical free, which really is part of the solution, though. You do have to take the chemicals out of your life long enough that these treatments work, right? You can't keep upregulating inflammation, and then in that process, we're emptying the bucket. R1, all the R's are applied, getting the cellular function working, and repatterning that nerve system and changing the DNA. And again, that's where the 5 R's do come in. It changes the DNA, changes these reactions, but you do have to stay away from the chemicals long enough in that process to do it. Which really talks about how we made our homes safe. One of the things, and we'll have Phil Kaplan on, at one point, and Phil always remembers this. He says, Dan, you were the first one that said, Phil, if you don't make your home safe, nothing that I do is going to work. And we put in, he put in air exchangers, which bring in fresh air. Warren said we have a video about this. You can direct it to where that is on our site. But it brings these units, we have them in our homes. You have them in your business that you're sitting there in now. They bring in fresh air, and they pull out the stale air. See, because homes are built so airtight, there's no fresh air, there's no air exchange. So these things exchange fresh air all day long. That's one technique. Warren mentioned about how we positively pressurize a home. Well, that's very important because a lot of homes inside the walls is probably the most formaldehyde-rich material, and that's insulation. And what happens is from those walls, if it's negatively pressured or positively pressured from the outside, negative pressure on the inside, those toxins come into the home constantly. You can never, ever, ever make your airspace right. But if you positively pressurize the inside of your home, you're keeping that attic air, wall air out. So, that's a big part of making your home safe. Of course, better carpets. Of course, using no chemicals, cleaning chemicals in your home. I mean, the list goes on. But making a home safe is a major part of getting well, and it's one of the first steps.
Yeah. So if I was in a home, that was newer, say 2 years old, and I was chemically sick, I mean, let's just give them some numbers. Roughly most things off gas in about 4 years, I would say. So the 4-year-old home, and that's the same for hotels. If you're looking for hotels, to give some ideas, you call the hotel, when were you remodeled? 4 years ago, perfect. 3 years ago, really good. 2 years ago, not so good. I mean, if you're not really sensitive, you'd be okay. And if you open the windows, another question that you ask at a hotel, does your windows open? Hold on, I'm going to call engineering. I mean, it's a pain in the butt to live the way we live. However, when you want to perform, at the high level that we perform at, we can't even take those risks. So even today, even though we're not quote-unquote chemically sensitive, we're not going to go into a new hotel and stay there. We're going to get a hotel that's between 2 and 4 and 5 years old. Then if it's too old, then it's, we haven't remodeled since, 1910. You can guarantee that there's big, mold spots that they keep painting over on the ceiling that are making you sick as well. So, that 4-year range is kind of where you want to be and when you buy your home. But yet the insulation now, Dr. Pompa, the good news is one of our good friends, Ron Esposito, who we should have on the show again soon because he's lived this with us. He's getting a new home, which I don't highly recommend. He's not a chemically sensitive fellow. But he's getting air exchanger, no VOC paint. So he's getting that air exchanger. They call him an HRV or an ERV. He's also going to do all hardwood. And the insulation, I had him double check with the builder. I've had an hour on the phone conversation the last few days, and the type of insulation they use now in all their homes is formaldehyde free because of some of the stuff that came out of the New Orleans, I forget what hurricane that was, not Sandy, but probably the one before that, when FIA, or was it FIA? Anyway,
FEMA.
FEMA. Yeah, FEMA was doing those trailers, and they were loaded with the particle board, which used formaldehyde glue, and it was making people really sick and making children very sick, getting formaldehyde poisoning. So, part of that was the push, I believe, that got the formaldehyde out of most insulation. But in this building, believe it or not, it's only a 4-year-old building, but the type of insulation he used is older. So this building that we're in right now has formaldehyde insulation in it, which isn't good. So if you can see up here, I have an air exchanger. I don't know if you see it, but see that little vent above that picture of the trout? And then there's Krista. Say hi, Krista.
Hello.
There's Krista. She's our assistant. And there's a little vent up there, and that vent blows fresh air into this room. So at least this room in our office is 100% safe because it's like a balloon. This room is like a balloon being filled up with fresh air constantly, causing a major positive pressure. Let me come back. Causing a major positive pressure. So if I pop the balloon, the air is going to go out, right? So that's a positive pressured environment. So I live in a balloon full of fresh air coming from the outside. There's a stream out there, probably getting some good positive ions for the energy folks out there, coming in, ballooning me up so the chemicals in the walls can't come in and get me. So, and Dan knows that this office isn't the best.
The nice thing is you can utilize those machines to create that positive pressure because you can bring in more air than you're bringing out. So let's say you do half and half. You bring in, say, this much air, and then on the way out, you're bringing in this much air. There's dampers in them. So you're creating the pressure by how much air you're bringing in and letting out. So, yeah, I mean, it's that's one of the techniques, and obviously buying the things that without the chemicals, you can make a safe home, and it's very important. But, again, we have to keep our cellular function. We have to fix our cellular function through the 5 R's. And you do the right thing long enough, make your environment safe, your body will learn new patterns. The DNA will change. You will become well. The people who just do not become well from chemical sensitivity, you have not gotten rid of your sources. There's still a source in your life, whether it's silver fillings, whether it's just bioaccumulated toxins that you just haven't detoxed correctly. And no, folks, a colon cleanse is not going to get it out. An infrared sauna, we love it. We use them ourselves. But in and itself, it's, by itself will not get all the toxins out. You need to do true cellular detox along with these things, and that's truly the key. You have to fix the cell to get well. You have to, true detox happens at the cellular level. That's how you get well. You do those things long enough, your body will repattern. It won't overreact anymore. Thank God the body heals itself. But that's how we got well. I wish we could say, hey, we got well in 6 months. It just doesn't happen that way. The body takes a while to change those patterns, those neurological patterns that have been upregulated through the trauma of toxicity. And really, that's how these people end up there. The trauma of toxicity, whether it's the moldy home, whether it's the vaccination, we can go down the list. Any infection on the backside of any of these major toxic traumas is chemical sensitivity. And by the way, Warren, all of those FEMA people and the people that went in for 9/11, they're all chemically sensitive, severe MCS. They're all so sick, and most of them don't know what's wrong.
So they call it the 9/11. What they call it, the syndrome. It's almost like from Desert Storm syndrome, and then they have the 9/11 syndrome. What it is it's chemical onslaught. They breathed in all the smoke and from all the flame retardants and everything that were burning off the building, all the chemicals, and they're just buckets overflowed.
When I watched, and my kids would tell you, when I watched all the heroic events taking place at 9/11 and these people rushing in, they didn't have masks on. And I said to my children, oh my God, every one of those people are going to be sick. Those people that were running out of there, just breathing that air, and you see them in the videos, every one of them are sick today. And I knew that was going to happen. It would just take some years before the symptoms set in. And that's exactly what we're seeing now. They breathed as chemical air, and now they're sick. So the same way those people end up sick is really the same way that the average person ends up sick. Too much, too fast, the bucket fills, and now your nerve system has a pattern of creating its own inflammation. We're trying to bring the answer to the world. This problem is a growing problem, and again, just getting people to understand that this is in fact your problem is probably step one.
Yeah, you even treated one of those heroes, Dr. Pompa, one of the main heroes, I believe, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of them.
Yeah. How are they doing now?
Yeah, much better, much better. And a lot of them have autoimmune conditions, which we've spoken in the past about, triggered by a lot of those stressful events. So if you haven't read the Autoimmune Answer article, please do, because it really brings into light really this whole topic, because they play together. So yeah, this is a topic, Warren, we could go on and on about, because it affected us, so dramatic. I mean, it really was. We joke, we laugh about our lingo and and what we went through, but our lives were very difficult, and it was not
very different.
Yeah, but out of it came a purpose, a greater purpose to educate people about what we learned in it. And I believe in my heart that God allowed us to go through it. He gave us the answers, not to sit on, but He gave us the answers because there's so many people suffering, and unfortunately at younger and younger ages. So we have the answer. We can't boast about our intelligence of finding the answer. Honestly, it was God who brought us the answers, and we both believe that in our heart, no doubt.
Yeah, 40 minutes has gone by, Dr. Pompa, and it's like we just got started on this topic. I mean, there's a long history here. We do laugh about it now. I think that the reason we do, for those that are suffering, how can you laugh about it, Dr. Pompa and Warren? We're here now. It's like it's an adaptation, honestly. It's trying to create a positive anchor, and we don't want to go back to those dark days. And even if we get a hint of it, now it really can anchor us back in. And we know that part of our neurology is we can't do that. So when we're laughing, it's like some people laugh and they get cut, ha ha ha, or whatever, because that's their way of adapting. And we just don't want to go back and create that negative anchor. So we do the things that we did that were funny, and that helps us laugh our way back to health, if you will. So that's the strategy. It's not, we know that there's some people that actually faint when they smell a chemical. And we've had those really sick patients. So know from the bottom of our hearts, we know that you're suffering and how tough it is to live that life. You can't go to church anymore. When you become aware of this, it becomes one of the most difficult lives that are out there. So we do sympathize with you, but we also are here to give you hope. And then God will give you a puppy, you know, like Dr. Pompa has, to bring joy to your life. And he definitely is a great dog. So we love you guys. We appreciate you listening. Share the word. We have a new article coming out this Wednesday. If you're not on our list, go to drpompa.com. Get on our list. We have a new article coming out on the ketosis diet. Dr. Pompa and Meredith have been hard at work revamping this article. That's going to be released on Wednesday, not this Saturday like we normally do, because we want to release it during the week. There'll be more people that can watch it and share it throughout the week. So be looking for that article. Also, some of our toxic top 10 things you need to switch in your home. Toxic top 10. The number 10 is another great resource for you. Take care. Have a great week, everyone. Or weekend. Thanks, Dr. Pompa.